the record reflect we are back in session. Parties and council are present. All members of our jury and our alternates are present. Dr. Rubin is back on the witness stand, and Mr. Owens, you may cross-examine.
Dr. Rubin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
So, your initial process is called reprojection. Is that correct? Is that what you call it?
Okay, yes.
The initial process you use, you describe it as reprojection, right?
Yes.
You're projecting one image into another to see if there's some type of correspondence or correlation, correct?
No, not correct.
Okay. My understanding of your process is
Objection relevant.
Overruled.
and you can confirm or deny this. You take, let's say, the suspect video, the Mitchell surveillance video, correct? Right? You take it, and you take the Ferroscan, and you introduce both of those into your proprietary computer system to merge, to put the two together, correct?
Oh, okay, that's correct. Because you said image to image. It's not image to image. It's a model to image.
Okay. Sorry for the lapse in language, but you're taking the image, which is the surveillance video, and the model, the Ferroscan, and you're using your proprietary software to kind of merge the two together or kind of lay them over each other, correct?
Injected, yes.
Injected. Okay. And when you do that, you are looking for points of correspondence, correct?
Yes.
And when you do that, you select what points to attempt to align, correct?
Correct.
And your description of your software, if I understand it correctly, is that it will take the model and twist it in three-dimensional space, move it around to find the best result to match up to those points, correct?
Well, we're not actually twisting anything. It's the algorithm, in effect, ends up finding a position through something called minimization process.
Sorry for using the word twist, but it moves it around in three-dimensional space
No,
until it finds a position that corresponds.
no.
So it doesn't move it?
It has a process by which it arrives to that position. It doesn't do what Mr. Licio done, which is moving something.
I didn't ask about what Mr. Licio did. I asked about how your program,
Just trying to clarify.
Overruled.
what I asked her was the process by which your proprietary software manipulates the model when it injects it into the image to find a correlation with the data points you selected.
So your understanding is wrong.
Okay. You're trying to match up data points, correct?
The algorithm computes the best possible projection mapping between the model and indicated points on the model, which is a bunch of XYZ points at that time, to what we call UV positions in the image. And for that, you write equations, and basically solves these equations, which amounts to minimization procedure. So it doesn't physically take any object, it doesn't manipulate an object, and so on. But in the end, there's a geometrical interpretation, which is to say that it does find, through that process, it does find a position that is the best position yielding the smallest error.
So it has to move that model into a position that is giving you the smallest error, correct?
No, it doesn't move
So,
anything.
Mr. Jackson, can I have my computer display, please? Mr. McGee showed you this photo, and I believe it's going to be an 1150. It's either D or E, if I recall. My notes said. And this shows the trooper after you did this projection method, correct?
Okay, I assume. As I said, I don't remember well the trooper. It was not important to me at some point. So,
And in this image, isn't it true that the rear end of the trooper is elevated what appears to be off the ground?
good observation. There are two interpretations to that in the human eye, because we don't know, actually. So the human eye can interpret it as it's a trick of the mind. So if the jury could try. It could have been lifted, or it could have been shifted away from the curve.
So then your program moves the model away from the curve or up in the air in order to align those points for the best possible result.
First of all, you cannot call it mine. It was invented by a German mathematician in the 18th century named Gauss.
You wrote your computer program?
No, he invented the least square minimization algorithm.
Objection argumentative.
Oh,
Sir, in this image at 1150, I believe it's D, it shows the rear end of the trooper elevated off the ground, correct?
I don't know that.
Is it C? I'm sorry, I've been corrected. It's C, 1150C. It appears to be elevated off the ground, correct?
Here's the brain. Somebody else's brain may appear to be shifted away from the curve and sitting on the ground. In somebody else's imagination, it could have been any combination of the above.
So we can just imagine what position it is.
And we can.
So regardless, if it was shifted away from the curve, or in the alternative, its rear end was lifted in the air, it's your computer program that did that.
The program computed projective mapping and then took three-dimensional model and projected three-dimensional model into the image.
And when it did 1150, is this E, Mr. McKean? This is E. With the trooper appearing to launch itself into space, it's your computer program that manipulated the model for that result, correct?
It really works according to my computer program or my algorithm manipulates now. So some kind of pejorative words that you're using probably for some reason.
Sorry, in processing the data from the model, it projects it in this position, correct?
Correct.
And it's the computer program that does that.
Obviously.
And you would agree that in this result, it appears that the trooper is elevated further away from the curve and its front end is elevated.
Well, possible interpretation is
Is there other possible interpretations you see that I do not?
well, as we go back, there were interpretations on some other model and some other image where we didn't realize that it was underground and not on the ground. So the brain sometimes cannot interpret those things.
Tell me about this. Is there some other interpretation of this that we are missing, other than it being elevated and moved away from the curve further?
It's irrelevant. I don't want to speculate about interpretation. You know, there are 12 people here, and then each of them may have a different interpretation.
Let me move on to another exhibit. And you did the same with the white, that same process with the white truck, correct?
Yes.
And this one is 803, I believe. The mark is 803. And the process, the little green and red dots on the right, those are points that you selected in the FAROScan data, correct?
I assume there are many different experiments. I don't know which one it is.
Is this one of your experiments?
I don't know. There were 5 points, 8 points, 9 points, 10 points from all this experiment. I don't know which one it is.
Well, this is your 10.1 that you testified to on February 5th. Do you
Okay.
recall that?
I'll trust you on that.
are you having difficulty recalling the nature and scope of your work on this case?
No,
Do you have an independent recollection of this experiment that you did with the white truck?
because I can't clearly read, I mean, it's very bad image, so I cannot clearly read how many, I mean, it says number 9, then number 10, so it must be 10,
If
yeah.
you look at it on the screen here, that might be a little bit clearer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like 10, and what's the number on the back? 9? The one on the back. Okay.
Okay, is this yours?
That looks like one of these experiments, yes.
Okay, so to do this experiment, you go into the Faro model, correct?
Yes,
And you select certain data points, correct? Such as you have labeled 1, 2, all the way through 10, correct?
yes,
And then you take that model and your program moves that data or merges that data or projects that data into the suspect video, which is the Mitchley surveillance video, correct?
correct.
And this is the result it came up with on 10 points, correct?
Correct.
And on February 5th, it was your opinion that you could not exclude the defendant's truck from the video based on those 10 data points, correct?
I'm a little bit puzzled because there was another point on the back. I'm not seeing another point. We use something called the rear point projection, and if I'm correct, I use that one.
My question, sir, was on February 5th, when you testified to this 10-point analysis, your conclusion was you could not exclude the defendant's truck, correct?
What I called there 10 point could have been different than this. I don't remember. Okay, because there have been different versions of 10 points as well. But whatever it is that we showed, I could not exclude. In other words, I could not reject.
You could not reject or exclude the defendant's truck on your 10-point analysis, correct?
I don't think I use word exclude. I
You
use
just
word.
did.
Objection argumentative.
I was using the word you just testified to, sir.
I said reject. I could not reject.
Fine. You could not reject the defendant's truck from this 10-point analysis at the time, correct?
I think so. If this is the one, because there was another one which is almost similar, but they had another point on the back.
Yeah, but in that experiment, you could not reject the defendant's truck either, correct?
I used only one of them. I used only one of them for that.
But you could not reject in that experiment
Yes,
either.
whatever it is that I testify, either this or another version of it, I could not reject, yes.
You hinted at the fact in your answer that you ran multiple experiments with multiple different points, correct? Number of points.
Yes.
You did it with, what was your first one, 4 points?
I don't remember if I did 4. I did 5 definitely. And I did 8 points. And I did 9 points. And I might have done something in between. And each of them had also multiple versions. Some of them were just ridiculous because I try anything I can try to see what happens. As I said, it's basically a combinatorial problem. So you try whatever and see if it can give you some meaningful result because we don't really know which point is which anyway, so I tried different ones.
So you did 4. You did 4.
4, I don't think 4. I don't remember 4. Because
Isn't 4 the original comparison you did in 2015 to provide to the Sheriff's Department?
I don't remember that. It's been too long ago.
Okay, so nonetheless, you did 5, 8, 9, and 10, correct?
This time, yes.
And in each of those cases, you could not reject the defendant's truck, could you?
No, that's not correct.
When you testified on February 5th, that's what you testified to, correct?
Okay, I can explain if you let me.
The question was, did you say?
Well,
you would not
yes and
present-
no, it doesn't work this way. This is mathematics, and I have to explain what, I'm not trying to be argumentative with you, I'm just trying to explain to you what I did and what I testified to.
Isn't it true you testified, and I'm referring to page 3703, that it's an interesting experiment, so again, that did not yield rejection?
That particular one, whatever it was.
Now, you have, once you insert the model, well, let's back up a little bit. In order to insert the model into your proprietary system, it requires being converted into a different format than it is originally in, correct?
No.
The Faro data comes as it is, correct? And you need it converted to an XYZ format, correct?
Correct. XYZ is a standard format that comes from Faro.
Then why do you need it converted? Because you've made multiple requests for converted data to XYZ format.
I don't know if I use the word converted. XYZ is the original format that we require for a reason, because we don't want a processed data. So Faro provides raw data or processed data. Most people don't want raw data. We don't want processed data. We don't trust in it. So we take the most raw data, which is a bunch of points in space, and then we make them into a model, okay? And then we use that model. You're turning your back to me, so I don't know if you're listening.
I am.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I'm using bad language. Isn't it true that you have requested multiple times to have it exported to XYZ format?
I don't know,
Your
I
Honor,
may have used that word. It
Your
all
Honor.
means the same thing.
I would object is now discovery, that apparently they're referring to emails with Mr. Detective Brian Smith and Mr. Rudin, which we didn't receive.
They could be those with Jacob as well.
The objection's overruled at this time.
So the 2019 Faro scan of the truck, you made a request through Defense Counsel to get it in XYZ format, correct?
Correct. Which is exactly the same format that was given to me prior with the other truck. That was an XYZ format.
Sure, but when you were unable to get it, you did not go to the Faro company to get their free software to do the conversion yourself, correct?
Faro company doesn't talk to me.
Faro company will provide you the software, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Assumes facts not in evidence, and this is actually misconduct. We'd ask for an admonishment.
Overruled, he can answer whether or not he knows if that is correct or not.
I don't know what Faro cannot do. We had a bad experience with Faro before, and Detective Ryan knows about it. We had to go through them, through you, to get what we needed.
And you were provided that, correct?
Yes.
Oh. And so you did not use that in the 2019 scan to put it in the format that is usable by your software.
No, I was not provided conversion software. I was provided actual XYZ, I believe. I mean, I could talk to my programmers, but I believe we were provided the actual XYZ because it was in the archive.
So you're telling me that it's your programmers that did the work on this case and not yourself?
Well, they certainly know where the data was stored or archived. I don't do everything by myself.
The point being, you testified on direct that all models will introduce some form of error, correct?
Are we off the subject of XYZ?
My question, sir, was, didn't you testify yesterday morning that all models can introduce error into an analysis?
Of course.
and you have no way of quantifying exactly what that error is, do you?
This is too general. It depends. Farrell claims 2 millimeter accuracy on their scans.
When you import that model data into your program, that would also potentially introduce more error, correct?
No, that's why we're using raw data.
But the interpretation of that data by your algorithm would also introduce potential error, correct?
I don't know what you mean by interpretation. It's just a set of XYZ points that we use formula with. That's why we need raw XYZ. Farrell typically provides something else. I'm not Farrell customer, so I don't know exactly what they provide. But we asked for the raw data and we got it before, and we assume we can get it before again, but we didn't.
Now, looking at Exhibit 803 as it's projected, you see anything wrong with that image of the model being inserted into the video?
In what way?
I'm asking you, do you see anything wrong with it?
Well, it's not a very good quality image.
You would agree that the front tire appears to be much larger than the rear tire, correct?
Okay, in pixel values, yes.
What caused that change? Because it would be safe to assume that that didn't exist in the Faro, right?
Farrow is not an image, I mean, it has an image, but Farrow is a scan, three-dimensional scan. It's a different thing. So this is caused by a projection mapping.
So it's the projection mapping that distorted the image to make the front tires look larger than the rear tires.
It distorted nothing. It's actual physical, it found some physical position in space with respect to the camera and then took snapshot this picture. It means that there actually exists such a position in physical space that if that camera took that image, it would appear this. But to somebody who is not familiar with projective mapping, it may appear that is something wrong. But you can always position things in such a way that it will happen.
In that positioning, isn't it true that your program shrunk the image to fit?
It did what it did. It speaks for itself.
Because isn't it true when you talked about the trooper, you were able to reject the trooper, correct? You rejected the trooper from being a contributor, correct?
Well, we rejected Trooper first and foremost because of this assembly, whatever you call that, that is on its rear. That
You
was,
rejected the trooper, correct?
again, general statement, rejected when? I mean, I said something yesterday, but the main rejection, which I discussed with you, by the way, was because we determined that there was nothing in the physical trooper that could match that image, particular image that we examined, and then we decided it's not it anyway. So then we stopped any photogrammetric studies of it.
Well, you would agree that you would also have to reject it based on the outcome of your two experiments, one that showed the rear end in the air and one that showed the front end in the air. That's not physically possible, is it?
No, it's not true, because the other interpretation, again, this is your brain is interpreting things. Another interpretation that we had actually, we discussed, was that it was shifted this way, out of the curve. And that's another interpretation. And I can see that interpretation.
When you were discussing about the trooper, Exhibit E, 1150E, which is the trooper with its nose in the air, you said, quote, the image shrunk itself.
I remember saying it in what respect? Yesterday?
Yes?
I don't remember. What?
So when you said the image shrunk itself, what would have caused the shrinkage?
I don't remember in what respect I said it.
The only thing that would have caused the shrinking of that image of the trooper would be your program, correct?
Objection, I'm banned.
Sustained is cause for speculation since he doesn't recall the context.
Yeah, I don't remember this. You have to bring the context in which I said it.
Alright, so the question. Just a second, catching up.
Sure.
You testified yesterday in referring to your analysis of the white truck that your results were, quote, borderline both ways, end quote. Do you recall saying that?
I remember mentioning borderline.
In that context, correct?
Well, meaning that it was close to some number, whatever that was, 5 or 6%. I forgot what that number was.
So it was close to being rejected and not rejected, correct?
But it was under.
That's what you meant by both, correct?
I
It was
don't-
borderline. It could be, it could not be, correct?
No. At that time, obviously, I said cannot reject.
You said you could not reject, correct?
I could not reject. During 402, I said clearly I could not reject.
You also mentioned, sorry, strike that. In critiquing some of the process which Mr. Licio did, you mentioned his lack of validating measurements, correct?
I don't remember in which particular critique it was. Validating measurements.
Well, you spent the last hour of your testimony yesterday critiquing and criticizing Mr. Licio's testimony. Are you not recalling that this morning?
I pointed to certain things in his testimony that I thought were problematic.
And you reviewed his testimony by listening to the audio only online, correct?
First,
Right?
at first.
And then you were provided a video of his demonstration in court, correct?
Yes.
And are you saying you do not recall Mr. Licio's explanation of how he found the consistency in measurements in the overlays by comparing measurements and where they lined up? Do you remember any of that?
Are you talking about truck measurements? Or the front lawn measurements?
We'll start with the front lawn. Do you remember that?
I don't clearly remember, but I remember that he said that he couldn't match a particular part because he didn't have points there.
Well, that was the overhang, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall in his testimony where he demonstrated for the jury how he took the evidence video and was able to correlate all of the points or a lot of the points in the image back to the camera?
Your Honor, objection is conveyed at the summary and
Overruled, he can answer if he recalls them.
So he may have said something. I remember him, though, specifically saying that he couldn't match that, and that really was a flag for me.
So I'm showing you a capture from his testimony.
Yes.
Do you recall seeing this?
I remember seeing that pretty picture on the right.
Your Honor, objection, is this an exhibit?
This is.
I'm sorry,
taken
what's
from-
the what's the objection?
Is this an exhibit? What number?
It
Okay.
is taken from the exhibit, I'll get the number, it's Delicio's video of his presentation. Do you remember seeing this?
I remember seeing the one on the right.
Okay, well, they were projected at the same time during his presentation.
Maybe.
Do you recall seeing what he described afterwards of showing how those lines went back to the camera on the porch from the model of the Faro scan in the neighborhood? Do you recall seeing that?
He may have said something like this, I don't remember.
So Mr. Licio, in fact, did take steps to find internal validation in his process, didn't he?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled, yeah.
Well, I would hope so. That's how he gets mapping between the laser image and the evidence daylight image.
And you said, I don't have issues with Licio's testimony. Isn't that what you said yesterday?
I don't know. Maybe in some respects I don't. In some respects I do.
Well, isn't it true you're just upset that you didn't use your software?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
That's ridiculous.
It's about 12 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and take our noon recess this time until 1:30 this afternoon. Keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, and we'll see everyone back at 1:30.